Good morning, everybody, and how are we all doing? I'm delighted, I'm grateful, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. I had a fun time last night. Let's just get on to the next slide. There we go. I had a real fun time last night. I went to bed early, so I could be fresh this morning, but you'll see me on a rare form tonight. It was fun last night to see friends that I've known for a very long time in this industry, to make acquaintance with friends that I met last year in Woodrum, and to meet a lot of new friends. And on that note, I wanted to thank Rishi, the amazing team, Mithun at EWC for bringing us all here together today. Thank you very much. And speaking of a long time, this is a very special year for me. I get to celebrate in September my 40th anniversary of starting Colin Cowie Lifestyle. I have to say, I'm excited about my business now as I was 14 years when I got started. And each event for me is just as exciting as it was when I started a very long time ago. This morning, I'm not going to talk and share beautiful pictures. We have Instagram for that. We get tons of inspiration from Instagram, and that's we find the beautiful things that we're looking for. What I am going to do is talk about how can we scale our business, how can we grow our businesses, how can we stand out in the crowd and grab attention in a very saturated market. So let's talk a little about the state of our industry right now. A little slow this morning. Not me, it's just the mouse. Okay. The state of the industry. I use this line because the party's over. And I'll tell you why. 3 years ago, if I rewind the clock, I'm sure you'll agree, we were in the midst of an event revolution. We were just coming out of COVID, and the reason was so many people were never got the opportunity to get married during COVID. So the moment we came out of COVID, there was one wedding after the next. Prices went up. Our outsourced labor went from $500 a day to $1,500 a day, and Thursday became the new Saturday. So now, 3 years later, clearly there's a bit of a drop-off. The reason being is that during the pandemic, no one was dating or falling in love. Right? So as a result of that, together with a couple of global events, economy, and the fact that we don't run 12 months at 100% occupancy, we are seeing things a little slower right now. And this is the perfect time for us to renew and to reset. So I'm going to talk today about the power of collaboration. You've got 3 days to network. There are 350 people in this room. There are 100 creative partners and vendors out there that are dying to do business with one another, right? So let's take a look at some of the most successful collaborations that we've seen today and in the past. I'll start with the most obvious one, Michael Jordan. So much so today, Michael Jordan and Nike, that we actually think about them as one brand. Tiffany. Tiffany was a somewhat quiet brand 5 years ago until LVMH bought them out. And you must admit, it's incredible what they've done, and it's all been the power of collaboration. This Rimowa suitcase you see behind me, on its own, without the blue wheels and the decal and the blue handle, you can purchase that bag from Rimowa for $1,500. However, the Tiffany version sells for $4,500, and there's a waiting list. Supply and demand, power of collaboration. Here's another one. Fendi, a very well-known brand, together with Tiffany, another great collaboration. What you see now is absolutely genius. You can walk into Patek Philippe, and you can purchase this watch for $55,000 without the blue face. However, to get the Tiffany version, you have to buy a $5 or $6 million diamond or more, and they gift you this watch. Do you know what the resale value of this watch is? It's $1 million. And there's a waiting list. This is a good one. Tiffany, together with Arsham Studios and Pokemon. Where would you ever think you'd buy a silver Pokemon for $2,500 or a gold one for $15,000? Our own friend, Jeff Latham, just did a Lego flowers, right? Unusual collaboration, but it makes a lot of sense. Think about this one, Virgil Abloh, together with IKEA, right? Two opposite brands. Virgil Abloh, bless his soul, was the creative director for LVMH. This is a natural one, Dolce & Gabbana and kitchen appliances. Kusama and LVMH. The world was covered in dots. Looked like the world had chickenpox at one stage. It was so crazy with that collaboration. Who would have thought of North Face, an outerwear sports company, would do a collaboration with Gucci? And this one, of course, this is Lily Pulitzer from Worth Avenue in Palm Beach, one of the trendiest, most old stalwart brands out there, together with Target. Target went and did other capsule collections with people like Missoni and Diane von Furstenberg. This is one that I think is horrendous. Poor Balenciaga, the man must be turning over in his grave. I hope that none of you women will ever wear a pair of these. Okay? This is a collaboration of Balenciaga and Crocs. Two reasons not to wear that shoe. This is a genius one. Mikimoto pearls, probably one of arguably the chicest, most elegant, most revered pearl jewelry designer in the world with chrome hearts, the rock and roll brand. So much so that they did a Trilab collab. So this was a combination of Rolls-Royce, chrome hearts, and Drake, the musician. But look how tricked out this is with the chrome heart leather, the wheels, the full 9 yards. And of course, all the accessories that come with that. I think that you start to get the picture here, right? So this power collaboration is so important because it helps expand the brand exposure to a very, very relevant audience, an audience that you never had exposure to in the beginning. It gives us the ability to spark creativity and to think innovatively by taking one brand together with another. More importantly, it doubles your access. It gives you access to markets that you never had access to before. And then you get to optimize your costs because you're sharing resources in terms of your output, and you get to foster, most importantly, new customer engagement. And that's why we do this. I think you get to understand it's about the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. Right. Do your Gen Z brides like collaborations? It's an overwhelming yes. Consumer data shows that collaborations are particularly effective with Gen Z. 60% of millennials reported that they have purchased part of capsule collections, right? Think about this collection. It was the collaboration between Kim Kardashian and Skims that turned her into a billion-dollar brand. She then went and their children together did a collaboration with Fendi and then almost added another zero to her net wealth. What is one strategy that we need to ensure that your collaboration is successful? Right? For me, it's all about open communication. Because open communication allows everyone to have a voice at the table and to feel like they're heard, right? Two different parties coming together, sharing information. It allows you to solve your issues very, very effectively, and it allows you to respond to changes as they come down the line. And most importantly, it allows the team to feel safe and to be able to communicate freely with one another in search of success. How can we start collaborating today? First of all, make a list of all the different people that you can make a collaboration with. Always look for people with a much bigger footprint than you. So when I think of this, the easiest one for me is the destination wedding planner. It's through coming to events like this that I've met very, very, very talented other producers, designers, and wedding companies. Whenever I go to work in another country or another city, the first thing I do is I look for a local partner. Why? Because they will introduce me to their trusted creative partners and to their vendors. And if anything should go wrong, they're the first person to help you get out of the situation. Wedding showcases. We'll talk about this today, and I'm going to talk a lot about this tomorrow in my masterclass with you. How many times have you been in a situation you've had a bit of downtime? I found myself doing this, and I decided to put a wedding showcase together. So I got together with all my creative partners, went to a local hotel, they paid for everything, we got to showcase our wares, cost me nothing, but a great collaboration for all of us. You get to promote your work by doing collaborative posts on Instagram. I'm not talking about tagging one another, but about talking about inviting another company to do a collaboration with you. One step further, and you have the ability to go and do a collaboration with a magazine, someone like Brides, or someone like Vogue magazine, or even a local magazine, right? It increases your footprint, and it's a great collaboration. Let's be real. Every magazine that we know is like a vulture. They need tons of content. Right? The good idea is if you do get to do a collaboration with a regional magazine or a regional television show, if you do this after a while, all of a sudden, a national magazine and a national TV show gets to pick you up, and your collaboration becomes that much more successful. The collaborations work when you put all the right teams together. And I think of a great example. Many of you might know our dear friend in New York, Cece. Cece started doing invitations. Then she worked with another company, Nuage, who does beautiful linens. So she did her watercolors, and the next minute Nuage was doing collaborations with her, doing watercolor tablecloths. She then went and did a collaboration with La Durée for the party favors in the same matching box. She did the same thing with beautiful luxury scarves, and also got to do it with Laurent Perrier champagne, where she hand-painted the bottle. So we think out of the box, right? And we create new content. We have collaborations pretty much wherever we get to look. Another good example, and I've done this several times before with Christopher, with other homeware brands, where I've gone to them, or they've come to me and said, would you decorate our window for Thanksgiving? Or would you do this for the holiday season? I say, sure I would, on condition that you throw a cocktail reception, introduce me to all of your wonderful customers, you do a press release, and I have access to those customers. Cost me nothing of my time using their merchandise to connect me with another group of people. And at the end of the day, all these things give us the ability, at the end of the day, to introduce new people that we would never have had access to before. You get the picture now, right? Okay, what do we need to do to ensure that we have a successful collaboration? The first thing, when you find your partner, you need to make sure you've got very clearly established goals and objectives. What we want to do, and objectives, and how we're going to get there. Make sure you've got open lines of communication channels, so everybody gets to forgot to click here, sorry. So everybody gets to be on the same page and share information. You want to make sure that you're working in a trusted environment where there's psychological safety for everybody. And as with anything in life, we're making the collaboration very clearly defined roles and responsibilities. Who is doing what and how they're going to get it done. Then assemble a group of teams that have a very diverse set of skill sets and perspectives to bring a new sense of look and feel to the table. And as with any collaboration or anything, always be open to constructive and open feedback. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the blue ocean strategy. Right? I talk about this because we, in our wedding industry, are in a red ocean, right? We're working in a very crowded space, right? And we want to figure out how do we stand out in the crowd? How do we grab attention in a saturated market? Our markets haven't gotten bigger, but as our industry, there are more wedding planners and more people who are looking for the same jobs that we're looking for. So what do people end up doing? We work so hard with the customer, the client, and someone undercuts the price, And we know that when you start doing price cutting, it's a very, very slippery slope. So you need to create a blue ocean strategy, a place where you can do business, that you have less competition, where you can stand out in the crowd, where you can grab attention in a saturated market. Here's a good example. We think of the circus. Remember Barnum and Bailey? Barnum and Bailey was a circus that was an old tent, an uncomfortable seat. They tortured animals. It was a low expensive ticket to get access, and someone played terrible music live in the background. Right? And your ticket was 2x. Along came Cirque du Soleil. Right? No animals, a fancy, big, beautiful top, a comfortable seat. Music was so good that we actually bought the CDs of the day, and they charged 10 times the price. They reinvented a whole new environment for them to do business in. So it's all about diversifying our offering, right? And when we do this, and we go out and we look for new places, at the end of the day, it always brings you back to your wedding business, because you'll meet people along the way that you would never have met before. So a really good example of this is the book. I highly recommend you buy this book. If you haven't, run out and buy it. I think it's probably in its 7th edition. I read this book 10 years ago. It was like a Bible and a game changer for me. I've also figured out that we don't only need to work and focus on weddings. I mean, that's why we're here, right? But there's 12 months in the year. And you know what it's like if you've got a payroll of 26 or 28 people, and you have 4 great months, you have 2 down months. Those 2 down months really eat at your profit, right? So if we look into the blue ocean, what could we do to make sure that we don't have a downtime when you're not having a wedding? I found that, this is very interesting, look to markets that are saturated but don't have what we offer. We bring the world's greatest guest experience. Nobody knows how to entertain people better than this audience right here. Earlier on last year, I reached out to this. I looked at the financial services industry. 10 years ago, there were 5 players. Today, every bank, every ultra-high net worth fund out there, every hedge fund out there, every magazine out there that deals in the money world now has a financial conference. So how do they stand out in the crowd? How do they grab attention in the saturated market? I partnered with Forum, with Fortune magazine, a 95-year-old brand, and I said to them, I can give you a guest experience that nobody else can. I doubled their budget, and I created an experience where people came to us and said, we've never been to a conference like that before. I'll just give you one example. When you check in at a financial conference, basically you go in, you give them your ID, and they hand you a canvas or a leather bag with the name of the bank inside and a name tag. Not the way we do it. I arranged with artificial intelligence to visually identify you when you got into the elevator downstairs. When the elevator opened upstairs, one of 15 of our hosts, all dressed exactly the same in the perfect outfit, invited you, greeted you by name, and brought you into 15 small lounges where you were seated at a coffee table with 3 chairs. We then brought you a warm scented towel. You were then offered a cappuccino, an espresso, whatever drink you wanted. And instead of that canvas bag with the art of personalization, we presented you with a leather folio with your name embossed in it, and inside a sterling silver pen with your name engraved in the pen. That's one thing that we did over a period of 3 days. We reinvented their brand with an incredible collaboration, so much so that I'm now doing the same conference in Saudi Arabia at the end of this year, and the budget is 3 times the budget. We get the idea, right? Thank you. I thought I'd just share with you other collaborations that I've done that really helped me through a downtime. And I'll give you a good example of this. During the pandemic, I had just gotten married in South Africa through a very extravagant 10-day wedding for 176 people in 3 different destinations. I got back and didn't realize I was going to be on honeymoon for 3 years as the world went into the pandemic because of COVID. And all of a sudden, I got cancellation after cancellation after cancellation, and I watched all my income for 2020 just disappear completely. On the other side, all I got was a ton of wedding bills that started coming in, right? So I had to figure out what was I going to do, and I thought, who could use my services? And I set my sights on working with a brand in South Florida. There were 3 companies that I went to, and I asked someone to make a call of introduction, and I went to them and I said, I think you can use my services. At the end of the day, I ended up with a contract from 2 of those people, from 2 of those companies. I was able to pivot my team to focus on this, so I never had to put my team on unemployment, and because of that collaboration, it got me all the way through the pandemic, and when the pandemic came out, I now had 2 more revenue streams that I never had before, because of a great collaboration. The Mirror Hotel, I did the wedding for the owner of the hotel, this is in Hong Kong, in Sydney, Australia. He asked me to consult on the ballroom of his new hotel that he was rebranding and redoing. I told him I didn't like any of his ideas. I gave him my vision, and I ended up being the creative director for an 18-story hotel that I remade completely. NetJets, I was brought on board to create the most luxurious brand in the world. It was wonderful. For 3 years, I used those jets like a young New York taxi, and then 2008 came along, and sadly that came to an end. The building you see in the middle, the Zaha Hadid building in Hong Kong, I spent 5 years collaborating with them, designing their ballroom on the top of this building. I was there 3 weeks ago, and I'm going back next year to do the opening with them. You get the idea. Some other areas, speaking engagements, right? A great way to collaborate with other brands, not only in the wedding industry, but in the lifestyle industry. Gives you the ability to increase your footprint. It gives you the ability to have access to people that you never had access before. And as a result of that, their marketing department, their advertising dollars promote you, and you get to increase yourself. Consulting with hotels. I've done this with several hotels, whether it's banqueting, or it's food and beverage. You have the ability to go and make yourself useful to a hotel. The Boca Raton Hotel in South Florida was undergoing a huge renovation on 50 acres. They had 4,000 members, and all they had to offer their members was a beach club and 650 foot of white sand that hadn't been fixed and had no level of tension. It looked like an American Airlines airport in a small city from 1970. I went to the owner, I said, putting my party planner hat on, I can reinvent the lobby, give you new food uniforms, a new food and beverage concept. It was during the pandemic, put a tent outside for a pop-up restaurant, and they gave me a whole new revenue stream, and I still continue to consult with them today. You might find there's a hotel that has a bar that's not very busy on a Thursday night. Why not go deal with a hotel? So what the average price they're making on a Thursday, you bring in a DJ, you activate the place, right? It gives you access to more people, and you take a percentage of the upside. Costs you nothing, and they get to promote it. Content, we spoke about this. The whole world is looking for content, right? Whether it's a regional magazine, whether it's a newspaper, a television show, or social media, everybody's looking for content. And I've had the wonderful opportunity to also create bridal programs. Go to a hotel and say, you might not be able to afford me, but I can give you a gorgeous wardrobe of events that you could sell to someone who wouldn't have access to us, and you get to put the advertising campaign together for them. They get a Colin Cowie wedding at the fraction of a price. I did this in Mexico, so there was no dilution to my brand in the US or to my international brand. They also then paid me 4 times a year to come to promote this. Some recent successful celebrations that we did. I moved to Miami 5 years ago. I've got 40 seconds, I'm going to run through this quickly. I moved to Miami 5 years ago, having lived in New York for over 20 years, in Los Angeles for 13 years, and nobody knew me. There was a magazine article that came out in the Herald that these are the top 10 event planners to look for, and my name wasn't even included. So I had to get busy. So I went to the Four Seasons Fort Lauderdale Hotel, right? And they had no wedding program to think of. So I brought together all of the right people, floral, printed materials, food and beverage concepts, champagne and wines, music, immersive entertainment. We got to throw a wonderful wedding showcase for them. We got to meet all these fabulous new brides, never spent 1 cent, right? Hotel paid for everything. We got access to all the guests that came. All of a sudden, people started to take note. At Art Basel, which is arguably the best event that comes to Miami, when the world's richest people come to buy art, I was consulting to do an event with the Ritz-Carlton, and they were $15,000 short. And I really wanted access to these people. So I said, I will pay the $15,000, because you know when you cut a budget, right? The 50% that comes at the top is the stuff that really makes people, it gives you the wow factor. So I will pay the $15,000, but I want to be included on the invitation. I want my name on the step and repeat. I want to be included in the marketing materials. I want to be seated prominently at one of the dinner tables, and I want access to the guest list. If I had tried to do that event on my own, I would have spent 3 times the amount of money, and I would never have access to that guest list. So for a small amount of money, I got a real big bump. Here's a great one. Bell Harbor Shops is the wealthiest shopping center in South Florida. I went to them in October and I said, who's doing a holiday installation? I said, no one. They said they had a budget of $125,000. We ended up presenting this, and as a result of this, the budget became, they loved the concept so much, the budget became $250,000. And we're going to do it next year. As a result of that, I got the ability to have an ongoing column in their magazine, access to all of their buyers, and I also got to do lunch with Colin, which also happens. I do an interview with a celebrity, and once again, it pulls and increases my footprint. I read at my home, published it in the Florida Design magazine. Cost me nothing except for the renovation, of course. Right? So I think that you get the idea, right? Okay, I want to finish off with this slide. And I read this from Jeff Bezos, because we know that every no is one closer to a yes. So you can be grinding for 4 years with no results, in the 5th year become the biggest thing on the planet. The power of not giving up is real. We were going to do some questions, but I think we've run out of time. I wanted to thank you so much for being a great audience this morning, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at Masterclass. Thank you.